Crispin, just a question on what you talked about in terms of the geophysics, right? In most of the discussion I've had here, geophysics has been a more of a dominant tool used by exploration. Is that common thing in your part of the world? Obviously, the rocks are different, the cover's different.
Yes, so magnetics is a foundational tool that we use here in Canada and all over the world to help us with the geometry and the structure of the rocks. This belt was flown in 2000 at 200-meter line spacing. When we went in there, it just wasn't at the resolution that we needed to identify these structures that are controlling the mineralization. So we did a lot of work to figure out what we needed to do, and ultimately we decided on 30 meters. So we had 200-meter resolution data, and we brought that down to 30, and it was basically like putting glasses on. Everything came into focus, and all these structures that we see in our belt of rocks that potentially could host mineralization were apparent.
Okay. Stepping back, Capray is a big project, and sometimes these kind of big projects, it's fantastic, it's great, but it gives you a headache for the guys who actually have to go and do the work. Like in terms, like where to go, what to do next. Can you give us your thoughts, how different that is compared to your previous work, or what are the challenges that you may see or advantages?
Well, it is a big tenement package at 120 kilometers in strike length. It is a large structure, and further along this structure, of course, it is a proven multi-million ounce structure with our 840,000 ounces that we have in resource. And then to the northeast, we have Marathon Gold, who have over 5 million ounces in resource, and they're currently breaking ground to develop the first multi-million ounce mine in Newfoundland, which is on the same structural trend that we're on. So it is a very large structure. How we really dive in deep and figure out where to explore next, it's based off of a lot of things. The historic work review, there was good work done in the 70s and 80s, but never really had the capital or the focus to really dive in there and make the next big discovery on the structure. Also, as Warren has pointed out, this combination of geophysics and geochemistry from a regional perspective. So, we find these second and third order structures coming off the main Cape Ray Shear Zone that potentially could host the mineralization. And then we followed them up with a more targeted approach. So we start with broad-spaced regional data over the entire package. And then when we see indications of mineralization, we target in, and that's how we generate our detailed work, which will ultimately generate diamond drill targets and drive discovery.
I think if I may just add there, Noel, that's a really good point that Crispin just made, and it's exactly the approach we've used at Malachite. Right? So Malachite is an area, it's 15 kilometres of strike length, it's about 4 kilometres wide, it's on a major regional bend. We picked up the ground off the main Cape Ray Shear that we didn't already hold, with all of these splays coming off the major bend in the Cape Ray Shear. We picked that up off the back of doing the detailed magnetics. With that structural map that we built from the magnetics, we then went in and did broad coverage, 400 by 100 metre spaced surface sampling, tills, some bottomer holes, some rock chips and that sort of thing, and we defined a multitude of targets. So we had sort of circa 14, 17 different targets off the back of that, including the gold grain samples that we've reported over the last year or so. Some cracking gold grains, more than 1,000 grains of gold in a 12 kilo sample of till, which is huge, right? So it's the equivalent of like a 1 to 2 gram soil anomaly, right? Phenomenal results. What we've done this year is pick the best 3 of those, or at least the 3 targets that were the best defined from that work, followed up with some infill geochemistry, and now the rigs are turning there, right? So that's the first 3 of potentially 10, 12, 14 targets, and that's just in malachite. Malachite's, like I said, it's just 15 kilometres of that 105 kilometres that's completely unexplored. So it's a huge amount of opportunity that we still haven't touched, but the key to it is find what you think your best target area is, like malachite, 15 kilometres, get in there, detect the best drilling targets within there, get in and test them quickly. If you come up with something, great, you're onto it, and if not, get on to looking at the multitude of other targets that we've got.
So when we look at what you guys are working on, we're not talking about very deep kind of drilling, are we? Because pretty shallow stuff there, right?
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity at depth. I mean, we know from Central Zone we've got plunging chutes of mineralisation that are just not tested, much below 200 metres below surface. But there's so much gold within that top 150 metres, and there's so much value in that gold in the top 150 metres. Why would you go chasing the deep stuff now? Right? The aim is to get on to 1 million+ ounces that's potentially open pittable near surface, sitting under a very thin veneer of cover, so no one's ever found it before. Get onto that, and then as the field matures, you can start thinking about the deeper stuff.
Does that mean that, I pose this question to both of you, like, is it geologically unique, like Cape-Ray, malachite, or is it run-of-the-mill, you just got to do the dotting the I's and crossing the T's?
Look, I think it's unique in one sense. It sits on a proven multi-million ounce structure, right? It's the only proven multi-million ounce structure on the island. It's not to say that there aren't others, but it's a major structural corridor, and we know there's gold on it. So from that perspective, it's unique. From the perspective of the processes of mineralisation and the localisation of mineralisation on structures, it's structurally controlled. In terms of the geochemical signatures, not that unique. It's stuff we're used to exploring this way all around the world. We look at this, the only difference between Cape Ray project and the Yilgarn is that Cape Ray is scoured fresh rock with a bit of till on top. There's no deep weathering profile. So your approach to exploration is slightly different, but the mineral systems are similar. Right? So we know the geometry of we know the sorts of geometries we're looking for, we know the sorts of geochemical signatures we're looking for. It's just the approach to testing them. So here, we've developed, I spoke to you about this last time we spoke, about these power auger rigs, right? The backpack rigs and so forth. We've developed really lightweight, man-portable or person-portable methods for drilling through the till and getting a sample at the base of till and at basement, which is fantastic for the geochemistry. It's cheap. It's kind of like using a RAB rig in the Yilgarn, but we haven't got clay. So it's just a matter of adapting your exploration methods, but the mineral systems are